Recording in progress. Recording stopped.
Yeah, I know, I know.
We're colleagues, and he's been telling me
I,
about
I
you.
know him like, okay.
You're
I
very
know him
close, huh?
like,
Your brother with him
he's
are
my
best friends.
schoolmate.
Oh, sorry. Perfect. That's hot.
stream. Testing the stream once again.
If everybody go ahead and gets situated, hi Tite, we'll get started in 30 seconds so we can get on time here. And we're our high-level dialogue on accelerating electrification and pathways for renewable grids and industry. It's a pleasure to host this joint session with UNESA, AFID, ARENA, their members and partners, and it's great to see government, international, regional organizations, and the private sector in one room on one of the most pressing issues in energy, accelerating electrification pathways for renewable grids and industries. In case I haven't met you before, my name is John Defterius. I'm a board member for Sustainable Energy for All out of Vienna. Was the energy correspondent for CNN for 20 years and remained very active here in the UAE. I'll be involved with Abu Dhabi Sustainability Week, and this is a passion topic, and obviously the market is changing rapidly. Electrification, renewable fuels are key to decarbonizing transport, industry, and buildings, with renewables and total final energy consumption reaching over 50% by 2050. Tripling global renewable power capacity must be coupled with in-use electrification, physical and digital infrastructure enhancement, and modernization, and a skilled workforce to support this transition. Beyond our formal remarks, we have 4 session blocks with 6 to 8 speakers. So as I noted before we officially started this session, we need to adhere to the time allocation. I'm going to get up to facilitate here with the individual speakers as well. But if I give you a signal to wrap, you do need to wrap because of the timeline. We have 37 speakers in 90 minutes, right? So I don't want to be the sheriff, let's put it that way. The new sheriff in town, right? No, but we have a hard deadline at 2:30 to get out. So first, let me welcome a good friend and who supported the course that I teach at NYU Abu Dhabi, the Deputy Director General of ARENA, Ms. Gauri Singh. Please, Gauri, thank you.
Thanks, John, and good evening. Excellencies, distinguished guests, it's a pleasure to welcome you all here on behalf of ARENA, but also on behalf of the 2 very important platforms that we serve Secretariat for, which is the UNESA and the AFID, whose membership you represent. So I just want to start off very quickly putting part of our analysis for you to consider. So in our analysis at ARENA, we've put out that by 2050, electricity will be the dominant energy carrier at more than 52%, moving up from 23% that it is currently at. So this is a huge transformation that is in the process and is progressing, but not progressing that evenly. So it's really moving forward quickly in some regions, and many emerging and developing countries still continue to face persistent barriers. Investment also remains highly concentrated in a few regions, and often the grid infrastructure that we see is not sufficient, it's aging, and the requirement of capital remains high. For the developing and emerging countries, the cost of capital is also a very critical factor. So if these gaps really persist, then electrification really risks reinforcing the existing inequalities rather than enabling inclusive and sustainable development. These challenges are also very visible in the industry, and as economies electrify, industrial competitiveness will increasingly depend on the access to reliable, affordable, and clean energy. So in many parts of the world, we see the aging infrastructure, limited system redundancy, and growing exposure to climate impacts, which are placing additional pressure on already constrained networks. So IRENA underscores the need for forward-looking planning infrastructure, modernization and resilience to ensure that electrification delivers to the long-term security and reliability aspects that the countries are looking for. So the challenge before us is not just to accelerate the electrification, but to ensure that it strengthens energy security, supports industrial transformation, and builds resilience in all regions. And in this context, the discussions today are extremely valuable. They're valuable for IRENA to draw insights from what you will all discuss. And I look forward to a very engaging participation from all of you. Thank you so much.
Okay, let me welcome somebody sitting to my left, your right, Dr. Dimitrios Dimitriou, Vice President of M-Steel and involved with AFED as the co-chair, the Alliance for Industrial Decarbonization. Dimitrios, thanks. It has to be read. There
Okay.
you go.
Good afternoon, distinguished leaders, partners, and colleagues. Thank you so much. It's a great pleasure to welcome you to Abu Dhabi for the 16th Assembly of the International Renewable Energy Agency. And I'm also honored to address you today on behalf of the Alliance for Industrial Decarbonization, or AFID, which is coordinated by IRENA, and also to represent my organization, M-Steel, which is an active AFID member and co-chair along with Siemens Energy. And we are deeply committed to advancing the industrial decarbonization through renewable energy and electrification. I'm also pleased to convey the greetings of my group Chief Executive Officer, Engineer Said Al-Remeithi, who is unfortunately unable to join us today due to prior commitments. So on behalf of AFID, I would like to thank IRENA for convening this assembly and its leadership in bringing together governments, industry, finance, and institutions to accelerate the global energy transition in a practical and inclusive manner. This year's theme, Powering Humanity, Renewable Energy for Shared Prosperity, strongly resonates with AFID's mission. Decarbonizing industry is essential to achieving net zero emissions, but it's equally essential to safeguarding competitiveness, jobs, and economic development. So renewable energy and electrification are therefore not only climate solutions, they are also fundamental drivers of sustainable industrial growth. IRENA's 1.5-degree pathway makes clear that tripling renewable power capacity by 2030 must go hand in hand with accelerated electrification of end-use sectors, particularly the industry. This requires coordinated action across renewable deployment, grid expansion, and resilience, enabling infrastructure, policy alignment, and scaled-up investment. AFID was established precisely to respond to this challenge. As mentioned before, AFID is coordinated by IRENA and established and coordinated by IRENA, and it provides a platform for industrial leaders to exchange best practices, develop credible decarbonization strategies, and align corporate action with national and global climate objectives. AFID members have committed significant investments in renewable energy, electrification, as well as hydrogen circularity and workforce transformation, demonstrated that industry can be a driver and not a barrier to the energy transition. The high-level dialogues taking place during the Assembly, including these joint AFID and UNESA discussions on accelerating electrification, highlight the importance of system-level collaboration. Electrification at scale will not only succeed if renewable generation, grids, industrial demand, and finance mechanism advance together. From an industrial perspective, M-Steel experience illustrates this reality. As an AFID co-chair, M-Steel is pursuing lower emission production pathways and working towards a full transition to clean electricity while maintaining industrial competitiveness and supporting economic value creation. In closing, AFID remains firmly committed to working with IRENA, UNESA, governments, utilities, and financial partners to accelerate electrification and industrial decarbonization in a way that it is equitable, investable, and scalable. I wish you all a productive assembly and impactful discussions. Together, let's ensure that the energy transition truly powers humanity through renewables, electrification, and shared prosperity for all. Thank you so much.
Good. Dr. Dimitrios, thanks very much. I forgot to tell you, we have this Greek connection, but my mother's maiden name is Dimitriou. We might even be cousins somehow or another. Nice to have you on board here. Our other UNISA co-chair is Mr. Gareth Wynn, who's the Chief Strategy Officer for TACA. TACA has undertaken this discussion through its leadership of creating the World Utilities Congress, which takes place in May of every year in Abu Dhabi. Gareth, the floor is yours.
Thank you, John, and good afternoon, everybody, Your Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen. So as John mentioned, I'm here representing TACA as a co-chair of the Utilities for Net Zero Alliance, UNESA, and actually our other co-chair, SSE, is here in the room as well, so just a shout out to them as well, because it's a joint effort between us and all the members to be making the impact that we're being able to make with this new alliance. We all know, well, first of all, I'm delighted that we're here as part of this dialogue on accelerating electrification. We know that electrification is absolutely central to the energy transition. And we know also that in Sharm el-Sheikh at COP, there was the 2030 electrification breakthrough agenda set, which set out an ambition to move electricity from 20% as a share of total energy demand to 30% by 2030. So we do need to accelerate. And to do that, our industry is quite literally setting about to rewire the energy system. And doing so at the speed that we're all moving requires us to do more than just have technical capability. It requires us to collaborate. It requires investment on a huge scale. And as we know, delivering plans on the timescales that we have to, which are measured in decades in the utilities industry, we're going to need to do that collaboration, even if geopolitics at the moment seems to be moving a bit in the other direction. We need to look beyond that. I think to realize the full potential of electrification, in addition to the delivery of low-cost renewables, which we need to continue to do, we need resilient grids, we need scalable storage, we need to expand access to affordable finance, particularly for projects in the global south. These are the pillars that are going to underpin the clean power system we need for today and tomorrow. UNESA, we created it when COP28 was here in Dubai, and the idea was to turn the sort of ambition I was just talking about and to give the industry a stronger voice at the policy-making table, and I'm delighted that we are seeing this really come to fruition. And since its launch, the Alliance has grown pretty fast, and it now brings together 74 companies serving more than 350 million customers worldwide, and together the UNESA members are investing over $150 billion per year in the energy system, and we are now being heard. So by focusing on 3 clear, actionable priorities, we're going to help create the clarity and the confidence needed to turn commitments into delivery. And the 3 areas are mobilizing finance, creating policy and regulatory conditions that enable us to move faster, and strengthening the supply chains. And if we succeed in addressing these points, we know we can go further and faster in the direction the world needs. So thank you for being part of this conversation, and thank you for helping ensure that we can accelerate electrification to deliver the energy system the world needs. Thank you.
Good, Gareth, thanks very much. I think it's excellent to have 2 from the private sector leading into what that collaboration looks like. And it's extraordinary what's happened since COP28 in terms of the continuity. It was designed as a troika, and it delivered that momentum, particularly getting the private sector to have that voice. We thought it would be very good to have the scene-setting discussion here to see where we've come from in a short period of time and where we're going. Let's hand this over to Mr. Gurbuz Gomel. He's the Director of Country Engagement and Partnerships. He actually doesn't need an introduction in this group because he drives a lot of what we're talking about. Please.
Thank you very much, John. It's a great pleasure to be part of this dialogue, and also pleased to provide say a few words to set the scene for our discussion. In fact, ladies and gentlemen, we are meeting in a very decisive point that electrification has moved from a technical option to a central pillar of energy transition. It is no longer a future ambition. It is a present-day necessity, one that sits at the intersection of renewables, grids, and industrial transformation. Today's discussion is about how we can move faster and at scale. IRENA's 1.5-degree pathway shows a profound transformation of the global energy systems, and by 2050, electricity becomes the dominant energy carrier across final energy consumption. However, this transition is uneven, and while electrification progresses rapidly in some sectors, others, particularly heavy industry and parts of transport, are lagging. Bridging this gap is not only a technical challenge, but a coordination challenge across power systems, infrastructure, and end-use sectors. Smart electrification requires systemic innovation across 4 dimensions: technology and infrastructure, market design and regulation, system planning and operation, and business models. Progress in one area alone is not sufficient. All must evolve together. This is where IRENA's multi-stakeholder platforms play a critical role. The Utilities for Net Zero Alliance, UNESA, and the Alliance for Industry Decarbonization, AFID, have jointly adopted a plan to accelerate electrification solutions. The objective is clear: connect utilities and industry to deliver clean, affordable power while advancing the global goals for tripling renewables and doubling efficiency. These plans build on ongoing work of these 2 alliances. UNESA, representing power and utilities sector, is focused on scaling renewables, facilitating policy support, building capacity, and de-risking supply chains. AFID complements this effort from the industrial demand side. The plan is centered around mobilizing finance for industrial decarbonization, promoting electrification and low-carbon solutions such as green hydrogen and bioenergy with CCUS, strengthening standards and transparency across supply chains, advancing technology deployment and innovation, and supporting skill transformation. Building on this, UNESA is now focusing its work on implementation. During COP30, UNESA announced a series of delivery mechanisms aimed at removing grid bottlenecks and unlocking capital at scale, including pool procurement, starting with small island development states. In fact, we have a first implementation planned for the Caribbean, and unlocking stranded gigawatts, and also starting consultations on mechanisms to mobilize larger capital for grids and infrastructure. Together, these delivery mechanisms offer a platform for MDBs and private investors to implement and test the climate principles developed by the Green Grids Initiative and supported by UNESA ahead of international taxonomy reforms. By leveraging UNESA's $1 trillion pipeline in renewables and grids by 2030, this approach can unlock large-scale investments for infrastructure projects. These efforts are already translating into concrete commitments through UNESA's enhanced targets. Now its members have committed to increase total renewables energy capacity to over 1,000 gigawatts by 2030 and invest around $150 billion annually in renewables, grids, and energy storage, totaling up to $1 trillion pipeline of UNESA by 2030 that I have highlighted earlier. When we turn to AFID, its members representing energy-intensive industries have committed significant emission reductions while nearly tripling renewable capacity from 200 gigawatts of installed renewable energy capacity in 2023 to over 580 gigawatts by 2030. They also committed to increasing bioenergy, more than tenfold, scaling investments by over 3 times to over $150 billion, and raising workforce reskilling from 76% to nearly 90% by 2030. Together, UNESA and AFID commitments strengthen the conditions for electrification at scale by scaling clean energy and grids, mobilizing investment, reducing industrial emissions, and building the skills needed to deliver net zero by 2050. Thank you very much.
Okay. Gurpus, very quickly before you, you finish, there's always, you listed this idea of tripling renewables by 2030, and the decarbonization targets are very aggressive. Are we seeing the progress now because we know about the AI deployment and the scramble for energy? How do we make sure that these things can be realistic targets? Are you confident they can be delivered in your view?
I think, especially for the tripling target, there has been a very good progress. But I think Director General already highlighted in his speech, we need to look into it really deep, because are we there with our doubling efficiency target? And if we are not able to achieve efficiency targets, whether we need to overshoot renewables target to be able to achieve, to stay on track with the net zero by 2050.
Great. Thanks for taking the question. I'd like to call on His Excellency Abdullah Al-Shari, the permanent representative of the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, to Arena. It's great to see you again. So this block is 12 minutes long, and we have 5 people speaking, so I'm going to ask you to stick to the 2-minute intervention. Please, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Mr. John. I'll do my best.
Thank you. Do your best, or you'll deliver across that? Sorry.
Yeah, almost.
Okay, good.
Let's hope we can do it.
Thank you.
Okay. So, distinguished guests, excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, it is a pleasure to join you today in this great session on accelerating electrification and to share the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia perspective and experience. Over the past few years, the electricity sector in the Kingdom has gone under fundamental transformation, including modernizing and strengthening the electricity grid and enhancing its readiness to accommodate renewable energy and storage system. The Kingdom supports a holistic approach to emissions reduction, whereby electrification is pursued where feasible, while complementary solutions such as energy efficiency, clean hydrogen, and carbon captures are applied to address emission from hard-to-abate industrial activities. Based on the Kingdom's strategic location and its position as the largest electricity grid in the Middle East and Africa, the Kingdom, through the Ministry of Energy, is working to strengthen its leadership in the electricity sector, including becoming a global hub for electrical interconnection and the export of electricity produced from renewable energy, contributing to the developments of the regional markets for electricity trade, achieving the optimal energy mix, and supporting national targets relating to reducing emissions. Within a clear regulatory framework and governance which aims to enhance efficiency, raise the reliability of the grid, and ensure the long-term sustainability of the electricity sector, the Kingdom is working to achieve the goals of the energy mix, to reaching around 50% of combined capacities of renewable energy and storage system by 2030. And projects are currently being developed to produce electricity from renewables with a total capacity of around 64 gigawatts as of today, including 12.3 gigawatts already connected to the grid, alongside energy storage battery system with a total capacity of 30 gigawatts hour, of which 8 gigawatts hour are already connected to the grid. Throughout the ambitious Vision 2030, we have committed ourselves to redefining what it means to be an energy leader, including renewables, clean hydrogen, and integrated power markets. However, these transitions are not achievable in isolation and cannot be realized without collaboration, innovation, and mutual trust across borders. The Kingdom will continue to pursue long-term energy partnerships and advocate for pragmatic approaches to decarbonizations, in line with the circular carbon economy framework, while honoring our commitments to sustainability. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that. I saw in October the 2 big solar projects that were secured by Masdar with the lowest cost offtake ever in the Kingdom. So I can see the collaboration between the Kingdom and the UAE, of course. Mr. Joan Grosjean is the Vice Minister for Energy of Spain. Please, thanks.
Thank you very much, Excellencies, distinguished delegates, ladies and gentlemen. Indeed, accelerating the electrification of final consumption is one of the main challenges we face. It is the way to join the dots to make sure that the penetration of competitive renewable energy in the power system can reach final consumers. In Spain, we see mostly industrial demand and mobility as the 2 main aspects that need to be electrified. We recently published a very comprehensive report on the characteristics of energy demand in the industrial sector, And we found that the majority of industrial demand in Spain can be readily electrified with alternatives that are already competitive compared to fossil alternatives. For this to happen, we need two main things to happen. Firstly, price signals. It needs to be competitive to electrify. Renewable energy is already reducing the price of wholesale markets in electricity. The deployment of storage will ensure that that happens throughout the day, throughout the year. And we're now working on renewable energy, reducing the prices of ancillary services as well. So not just reducing the price of kilowatt hours, but every other thing that the power system needs to operate smoothly. And finally, grid modernization. We've now found that the Spanish grid is no longer constrained for new renewable energy penetration, but rather for new demand, new industrial demand wanting to electrify or wanting to come to Spain. For this, we're addressing a twofold strategy. First, and very much in line with the EU grids package, ensuring a better use of the existing grid, prioritizing the most important, the most mature, the best projects in every single area. And secondly, increasing investment in grids. We've just approved the increasing of grid investment in Spain by 60% to ensure we can meet our electrification targets. Thank you.
Great. Is that grid modernization happening as fast as you'd like? I know Iberdrola is going to be at ADSW, and I have Mr. Galan on a session, and he was talking about this priority, but they've been investing more and more in that modernization to take in the renewable capacity. You have your thoughts on that?
I think if we look at European and global standards, the Spanish grid is, I would say, humbly more modern and more well-suited than a lot of power systems. Obviously, more can and must be done, and we're working very closely together with the large international players, such as Iberdrola and other players, to make sure this can happen as fast as possible.
I know it's been a major point of discussion here in the UAE, and that's why they made it a priority at the WUC the last couple of years in the private roundtables. Dita Jule Jurgensen's the Director General for Energy, the European Commission. You've been a very busy woman, not only on these roundtables, but with the challenges with Russia, Ukraine, and energy supplies, and now the demand scenarios we're seeing from AI on the demand for electrification. The floor is yours. Thanks.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much also to Irina for the very useful scene setting, and to the private sector, indeed, for that. A lot of the European perspectives have just been set out by my colleague Joan from Spain, and so I can be fairly brief in what I'm saying. 3 points. How do we see electrification? What do we see as the main obstacles? And what are the global implications? What is it we need to do? Because this is not just a European issue, it's obviously a global issue.
Dita, just a second. Can we raise her audio, please, a little bit more volume? Sorry, I couldn't hear you myself.
Good. And I'll get closer to the microphone in case that helps. So for us in Europe, electrification is really at the heart of our energy policies. It is, of course, for the decarbonization, for the reduction of greenhouse gas emissions, but it is equally for our security, for our competitiveness, the affordability of energy. We've put in place a number of measures, the Grids Action Plan last year, and we are working on electrification strategy. The reasons for electrifying are very simple and very clear. It is more efficient in terms of energy efficiency. It is cost competitive compared to other ways. It is more secure because it reduces our reliance on imported fossil fuels. And so very, very good reasons to do that, in addition to issues of access to energy for more people. Now, when we look at the obstacles, and again, Ron has pointed to a number of those, we have questions around infrastructure, readiness, and efficiency. We have got issues around interconnectors, the cost of capital, the need for storage, the need for flexibility. So the challenges are many, and we are, in Europe, have the fortune of a common electricity market, and we therefore can address those challenges together, and thereby lowering the costs of doing that, working closely with our industry and with partners as well. Now, if we try to bring those considerations to the global level, I think the real concern is the fact that 600 million people do not have access to electricity globally, 400 million of those in sub-Saharan Africa. And so we do need to take action, not just in Europe, but also globally, working with partners to accelerate the speed of electrification for access to energy. It is the cheaper access to energy, and even more so when linked to renewables, of course. And so there are good reasons to doing that, and we will continue our efforts for the global electrification and access to energy, notably for countries in sub-Saharan Africa. Thank you.
Excellent. Thanks. I appreciate all the direct discussion. Director General, it's interesting because when we started that process at SDG 7, it was 1.1 billion people without access to electricity, so we've almost cut it in half. but we're not going to hit it to 2030. So I know there's been a renewed push by the Commission and others, like Saudi Arabia, for example, and the UAE, to push access for energy for all. I think it's fantastic. We have Spain, the European Commission, and Austria all together here. Dr. Benedict Enzor is also Director General, but it's good to get the very good representation from government, but also the private sector and the global alliances. Please, Doctor. Thanks.
Thank you very much, and good afternoon, everybody. I think there's no need to mention, again, electrification makes sense from a number of perspectives. Is the key to more renewable, but also a more efficient electricity system. And in particular, it makes sense for a country like Austria, where 90% of our electricity comes from renewable sources, with the remaining 10 produced by gas. So some of the challenges have already been mentioned, and one of the challenges certainly for investors in electrifying their processes, for example in industry, is prices. So what's the electricity price that they will have to factor in? And here we have to look at ways to mitigate both high prices and price fluctuations. Sometimes fluctuations are an indication of a lack of flexibility. And actually yesterday in this room, we came up with a number of solutions and ideas to improve flexibility through grids and more storage. And here on the storage issue, we not only have to think about how we can deploy more storage capacity, but also how we're going to use it and make the best use of the capacity available. We also probably need more new instruments to keep prices at a reasonable level, like power purchase agreements. And we also have to have a look at network charges and try to incentivize system-friendly behavior by both consumers but also producers. A second challenge, I wanted to reiterate what has been said very much along the lines with Spain and the European Commission. This is infrastructure and grids in particular. So here we are very happy that the Commission came forward with a very comprehensive package for the European Union for new governments and their revised governments, including on planning and permitting, and those certainly are two of the key success factors for getting the infrastructure deployed that we need. I wanted to conclude by expressing also a bit of a concern that sometimes we are tempted to correct market failures by spending money before we actually look at the root causes of perhaps inefficiencies in our market design. And I really wanted to advocate in this case that we should first of all try to get the market design right, to have price signals work, and then only as a second best solution engage into corrective intervention. Thank you very much.
Great, thank you very much. Mr. Ahmed Ali Ibrahim is the CEO of the GCC Interconnection Authority. I've been in this neighborhood since 2007, and we often didn't have the collaboration with GCC, both on trade, but even interconnectivity. Now we see rail lines being built and a whole lot more activity. Do you want to address electrification and how you see collaboration amongst the 6 states? Thanks.
Thank you, John, and good afternoon, Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen. It's a pleasure for me to contribute to this very important dialogue. From the perspective of the GCC Interconnection Authority, accelerating electrification is fundamentally connected with system integration. Renewables, grids, and industry cannot progress in silos. They must advance together at scale and with reliability and resilience at the core. In the GCC, electrification is accelerating rapidly, driven by large-scale renewable deployment, industrial decarbonization, introduction of EVs, and growing cross-border power trade. But none of this is possible without strong, flexible, and interconnected grids. Grid infrastructure is not just an enabler, it is the backbone of electrification. At GCCIA, we see 3 practical pathways that are critical. First, regional grid integration, where interconnection allows countries to share reserves, integrate higher shares of variable renewables, and reduce system costs. In our region, cross-border interconnection of the GCC countries has already proven its value for reliability and emergency support. The next phase is to leverage these assets to enable renewable balancing, market-based power exchange, and industrial electrification across borders. Second, planning grids for the future, not the past. Electrification of industry, hydrogen production, data centers, and electric mobility will significantly change load profiles. Grid planning must anticipate the shift, though long-term expansion planning, digitalization, and advanced system operation tools. This includes dynamic reserve sharing, regional coordination, implementation of AI tools, and enhanced flexibility mechanisms. Third, positioning electrification as an engine of economic growth. Electrification must make economic sense for the industry. Reliable, affordable, and clean electricity supported by regional interconnected grids can become a competitive advantage. Interconnected systems reduce redundancies, optimize investments, and improve resilience, especially during extreme weather and system stress. Finally, accelerating electrification requires clear policy signals and coordinated action. Governments, grid operators, regulators, financiers, and industry must move together, aligning regulation, investment frameworks, and regional cooperation. In the GCC, we see regional interconnection as a practical example of how collaboration can accelerate electrification while enhancing system security. In conclusion, electrification will only grow as fast as our grids grow. By strengthening regional interconnections, modernizing grid operations, and aligning electrification with industrial growth, we can turn ambition into reliable, investable reality. Thank you.
Joe, thank you very much, Ahmed. In fact, you led us quite nicely into our next block here, which is the key policy priorities and immediate actions to be taken. And we'll have actors from different alliances, of course, and also the private sector. I'd like to bring in Agnes Cook, who's sitting right next to you there as the Deputy Director of International Relations for the Energy Market Authority of Singapore. Thank you very much.
Thank you, John. Thank you for giving me the floor. I thought it was a good coincidence that I'm seated beside this kind gentleman from GCC. Exactly, this is the topic that I wanted to share, give you a perspective of what's happening in Southeast Asia. Well, many of you might have heard of the ASEAN Power Grid, and that to us is an important regional integration piece, which we're hoping to then achieve a regional power grid across 10 ASEAN members by 2045. And so we have set this timeline. What we hope to do is to then really connect renewable resources in the region, to then demand centers in the region, to then really look at accelerating the development of renewables and also enhance our regional energy security and domestic electrification efforts. But you might know that Southeast Asia, we're very much a very archipelagic region. We have 3 different very distinct pieces of land separated by a big body of sea. And so, central to that, we will need to then have submarine power cables. And this becomes a bit of a challenge for us because we've run into the lack of clarity on regulations and policy on the cross-border power trade using subsea cables. And what we hope to do is to then really work with the developers who are then unable to obtain the approvals, and also we then need to provide some clarity, regulatory clarity on the processes. So to that, ASEAN has then put together a terms of reference on the submarine power cable development last year. And this framework will then seek to cut through any ambiguity faced by the developers today to then provide a clear path for project approval and the passage of submarine power cables in the region. We also hope to then, through this framework, provide investors with the confidence to support large-scale infrastructure projects and to provide necessary financing to realize them. And so beyond grids, the other important aspect that we have also then put together is to put in place the right incentives to support the development of renewables. Renewable energy certificates are then one such tool. And ASEAN has then endorsed the terms of reference for our first regional renewable energy certificates framework, which hope that we will provide some financial incentives that can support the project's bankability as an additional source of revenue. And today we know that RECs arising from cross-border power trade are only recognized in Europe and North America. And given our aspirations, ASEAN has then really begun this framework. And so we hope to then share more progress on our two big regional initiatives, the submarine power cable framework and also RECs in the near future. This dialogue today is an important platform to really understand the many perspectives from the industry and also regional blocs like the EU and also GCC to then really draw on the experience on how regional interconnectivity can then take shape in Southeast Asia. Thank you, John.
Great. Agnes, you had the benefit of going first in the block, but this is the 1 minute section, so that's very good, though. And I actually had a follow-up question, but we're a bit tight on time. But it's interesting to see the GCC and ASEAN pushing quite aggressively now in terms of collaboration. If I had that conversation 10 years ago, probably wouldn't be the case, right? You'd agree. Let me bring in Khalid bin Hadi, is the CEO for the UAE sub-region for Siemens Energy and also an OPID co-chair. Let's recognize that 1 minute time limit. Thanks, Khalid.
Thank you,
Thank you very much.
Good afternoon, everyone. So as we work to accelerate electrification, success will depend not on ambition alone, but on clear investments, plans, and disciplined executions. Electrification will only succeed if three elements move together: infrastructure, policy, and trust. First, grids must be the top priorities. Electrification is not possible without power systems that are expanded, strengthened, and digitalized to manage rising demand and integrate renewables at scale. Grids are no longer passive infrastructure. They are the backbone of the energy transition. Here in the UAE, we have learned that ambition must be matched with delivery. Today, the UAE has one of the world's most diversified power systems, with over 30% of installed capacity coming from clean energy, integrated large-scale solar and nuclear through advanced grid planning, long-term policies, and a strong focus on system reliability and affordability. Globally, the challenge is clear. More than 80 million kilometers of grid infrastructure must be added or replaced by 2040, and investment must be accelerated now. Second, policy frameworks must enable speed and scale. This means streamlined permitting, stable regulation, and long-term visibility for investors. Capital is available, but it needs confidence. Third, electrification and energy security must advance together. Reliable energy systems are the foundation of economic growth, industrial competitiveness, and public trust. Finally, no region can be left behind. Mobilizing finance, technology, and skills for emerging markets is essential to build inclusive and resilient energy system worldwide.
Thanks very much, Khalid. I would say electrification has clearly changed the fortunes of Siemens Energy in the last 18 months, and you've had too much demand is one of the biggest challenges, so congratulations on that. Kapil Narula is the senior analyst, Breakthrough Agenda for the Climate Champions Agenda. Please, thank you.
Thank you, John. On behalf of my colleague, Luciano Caratori, and the Climate Champions team, I would like to deliver the statement on common vision. Going back to 2023, the Climate High-Level Champions and the Marrakesh Partnership, led by IRENA, framed the Smart Electrification Breakthrough, which was integrated as a part of the road to COP28. And the goal clearly was 30% electricity in the total final energy consumption by 2030. The UNESA Charter, which is synergetic with the tripling renewable energy and global energy efficiency as a part of a global stocktake, integrated this and is the background. Last year at COP30, we delivered the Global Climate Action Agenda and the plans to accelerate solutions as a part of Axis 1, energy, industry, and transport. And the scope of this covers right from the renewable energy, power, grid, storage, and into electrification of demand. The UN EZA and EFID are the host initiative of the electrification plans to accelerate solution. And I would like to highlight three themes very quickly as a part of the shared goals: financing, technology, which includes harmonization of standards, and policy and regulatory. As a part of this aspect going forward, we expect that UNESA and AFID are central to the delivery of electrification plans to accelerate solution, and we look forward to their contribution at COP31. Thank you so much.
Great, thanks for taking the chair as well. Bruce, we didn't think we were going to make it on time, but we're glad to see you here. As the CEO of the Global Renewables Alliance, it's action and policy structures for us to accelerate this process, please.
Thank you, John, and thank you to Irina and UNESA for the invitation to what is one of my personal obsessions, electrification. It is clear that we need to electrify everything, in brackets, that can be electrified with renewable power. EMBA estimate that already, with current technology, 75% of the energy system can already be electrified cost competitively. And depending who you speak to, that could go as high as 80 or even 90%. As the Director General of the European Commission, Dieter, just mentioned, there's huge additional benefits beyond the economics, which is efficiency, flexibility, reduced emissions globally and locally, but also security. 3 actions, that's what you're asking for, John, that we'd call on governments to do. One is, as mentioned by Francesco, Director General of ARENA this morning, is a global electrification target. Currently, 21% globally is electrified. We believe that could be taken as high as 35% by 2030. 0.3% annual additions could increase to 1% annual additions between now and 2030. The second action is long-term systemic planning. So if countries can take a systemic approach to long-term planning, I'm talking about supply, transmission, distribution, and demand, so specifically on electrification, if you start asking the questions where, when, how much, and what, those are great questions, and we can help answer those. And finally, and I think this is a low-cost, no-regret solution, is rebalance taxation. We should be taxing those things we want to reduce, such as fossil fuels, and reduce taxation on electrification to incentivize it. Sorry to pick on the European Union, Dieter, but in the European Union, some countries are taxing electricity 2, 3, or even 4 times the rate of gas. There's only 3 countries in the European Union that tax gas higher than electricity. That will incentivize innovations such as the Octopus and BYD initiative, which ties supply of electricity to the electrification of vehicles in one package. And I think those are the models that we want to encourage going forward. Thanks a lot, John.
Great. If you keep your mic on for a second, that's quite an amazing figure, though. The electrification tax vis-a-vis gas. Why is it still standing?
Well, it's historic, yeah. And you have to address, I mean, there's a lot of nuance in there. You have to address energy poverty. So you can't just use it as a blunt instrument. You may need to combine that with subsidies to avoid energy poverty. So those poor families who are heating with gas can still continue to heat. So tax incentives to help them. But there's many reasons why it still exists. The question is, why don't we change it now? The UK budget just recently readjusted those to reduce the taxation of electricity and put it onto gas and directly incentivizing electricity. And Dieter will no doubt see her hand up. She can...
yeah, very quickly. I live in the UK. We saw that, but it was digested as just a gas tax without the relief for electricity when the technology is not there, which is...
narratives. I mean, communications is the other big distortion. You know, narrative distortion is key. If you communicate correctly on this, it is a powerful incentive for electrification, but also lower cost energy for consumers.
Go ahead, Dieter, thanks very much.
Thank you. I can be very, very brief. Just 2 points. First, as Bruce has said, a number of the benefits that would count as subsidies for fossil are to reduce energy poverty. So those are about a just transition and about social measures, which are highly important. We went through a dramatic energy crisis, very, very high prices, and that required governments to intervene to help those citizens that otherwise would not be able to heat their homes. Second point, and this is really the action point, as you were saying, Bruce, we need to reduce taxes on electricity. We need to incentivize electrification through reduction in taxation. We in the European Commission actually proposed that at the beginning of 2025 as part of our Affordable Energy Action Plan, exactly that, suggesting to our member states to reduce taxation on electricity and make that a lower taxation compared to fossil fuels.
Great, very interesting. Uday Kemka, it's good to have the private sector here. We'll let you adjust to get the microphone. You just have to press the button so the red light goes on. You're Vice Chairman of Sun Group, please.
Thank you very much for having me here today, distinguished delegates, excellencies, ladies and gentlemen. I'm actually here representing an organization that we belong to called GRAIL, the Green AI Learning Network. One of the most exciting areas, of course, is the application of artificial intelligence to many of the things we've been discussing this morning. The Grantham Institute estimates that the extra GHGs from data centers by 2035 will be between 0.5 and 1.5 gigatons a year. However, the potential to decarbonize should be 3.5 to 5.4 gigatons a year. There's a huge potential to do all the things we want to do in the areas of the acceleration of renewable energy, efficiency, the electrification of industry, and the central problem has been one of fragmentation. That's to say that all the great AI companies, AI institutes on the one side, are not really talking to the great companies, utilities, industrial companies, and so forth. GRAIL, the organization I represent, was built to cross this divide and bring this community together, and we now have hundreds of institutions and companies around the world connected to each other. This led to a summit that was held in London, following on the Paris summit in December the 5th on AI and energy, focused specifically on decarbonization. And this summit brought together 200 experts, 115 institutions, to look at AI for demand management, or AI for grid management, AI for generation, as well as the AI for other ancillary areas like the transportation sector, the real estate sector, and so forth. This has led to expert tracks of industry and AI experts working together, identified a taxonomy of key areas that AI can help solve to accelerate decarbonization. For example, in the power sector, 138 hypotheses has led to 10 major areas that we think could make a huge difference. When these are now, we're working also with McKinsey now to finalize all this, and we'll be coming to many of you to get your final comments. After that's done, we have created a network of 1.2 million companies and startups who could help bring solutions to these key areas and connect to your utilities or other companies. We're very grateful for the support of UNESA and the IEA and others, and our partners at the Climate Collective and others. Look forward to working with you in the future on this important task of the application of AI to decarbonization.
Good. I just wanted to follow up. Is it 1.2 million companies you're bringing to bear here? Is that true?
It's a cheat. What we've done is we've hooked together many networks of startups and entrepreneurs and said, guys, we're going to come to you with these big areas. We're going to broadcast these opportunities and then let your innovators innovate in a way that serves the largest companies in the world and not just randomly.
Okay, very good. Thank you for following up on that. Ziad Boukarzel is a partner for Oliver Wyman. Uday mentioned the work that McKinsey's doing. How do you see the scope for Oliver Wyman? Thanks.
So thank you, John, Your Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, for hosting me. Obviously, we consume right now globally around 30,000 trillion terawatt hour of energy. Even though that seems to be a huge number, it only represents about 22% of the final energy consumed. And in case we want to reach the 50% mark, it's quite clear that there is a huge way to go. And to get there, obviously, we need to tackle two aspects, supply and demand, and that definitely makes sense. In terms of supply, there's a lot of work to be done in terms of optimizing mainly the grids, making sure we utilize the full capacity, the fully available capacity, to grow before we grow the grids, growing the grids, kind of diversifying generation, integrating storage. So these are critical elements, and we all talk about that. And one key aspect, obviously, as well, is resilience, because we are fighting climate change, but also we have to adapt to climate change. And that's a key aspect that some of the nations are focusing on and we should not overlook. So that's the supply aspect. There's obviously also the demand aspect. The big elephant in the room, industry consumes 37% of energy. Level of electrification is around 20%. If we look at transportation, it consumes around 20% of energy. Electrification is only around 2 to 3%. Same when we look at building, potentially if we focus within building into heating, it consumes around 15% of energy. Electrification is still around 10, 11%. So there's a long way to go with respect to those industries when it comes to demand. And there are a number of policies that can be undertaken in order to bridge the gaps. Some policies are related to adaptation. If you think of EV, people are adopting EV easily. Some of the technologies, such as heat pumps and so on, would require some incentives in terms of fiscal policies and so on. So the key thing is mainly to balance policies in terms of supply side and demand side in order to achieve that objective. Thank you.
Thank you, Ziad. Sorry to give you the signal that we're trying to keep these interventions to 1 minute. That means rap and television talk. We want to make sure everybody gets a voice here. It's Khalid Atebe is the director of the Global Climate Finance Center, which is based here in Abu Dhabi, another offshoot of COP28. Just be cognizant of the time, please. The floor is yours.
Good. Thank you, John. Excellencies, colleagues. From the interventions of my peers in this room, there's a discerning pattern. If we want scale and speed of electrification, we have to make it investable. So at GCFC, we've worked with policymakers, utilities, industry, finance, and a number of priorities keeps resurfacing because they are what unlocks capital. First is the clarity in direction, predictable and transparent processes, stable frameworks, and demand signals that reduce uncertainty over the life of assets. Number two, bankability through standardization, shared approaches to measurements and verification, practical documentation, and aggregation models that cut transaction cost and turns performance into financeable cash flows. And finally, risk allocation that mobilizes private capital, targeted credit enhancement, and blended structures paired with project preparation support so pipelines are investable and replicable. When you tailor these to national circumstances, you create a market signal that travels, and you also reduce the risk of an electrification divide driven by an uneven access to affordable capital. So at GCFC, we stand ready to support in bridging policy and capital, and we're continuing to working with partners to translate ambition into investable structures. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Khalid, very much. Manoj Kumar Singh, CEO of Net Zero Think, organization I've not heard from before, but please be very aware of time, and I appreciate everybody's directness here. Thanks.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you so much, John. To accelerate electrification at scale, we must move from ambition to bankable policy action. First, the government should think on the priorities. The priorities are giving long-term certainty, clear electrification roadmap for industry, transports, buildings, backed by stable renewable procurement and grid expansion plan. Capital flows where policy risk is lowest. Second, grid must be treated as critical infrastructure. Immediate investment is needed in transmission, storage, digitalization, and flexibility with public finance used to de-risk and crowd in private capital. Third, we need strong demand-side signal. Electrification mandates, green product standards, and market instruments such as carbon market or contract for difference to close early-stage cost gaps. Fourth, to ensure no one is left behind, blended finance and risk mitigation tools must scale rapidly in emerging markets, especially for distributed electrification and MSMEs. Finally, electrification must be people-centric, affordable, job-creating, and inclusive. If policy, finance, and execution move together, electrification can be fast, investable, and just. Thank you.
Okay, thanks very much. Rounding out this section will be Karen. Karen Rice Hamdallah is the Program Manager for Division of Energy and Climate Action UNIDO. Congratulations, by the way. I saw you in Saudi Arabia with the Ministry of Industry for your UNIDO gathering. So it's nice to see you here. Please.
Thank you, and indeed nice to see you again. I think we've heard it several times, but I really want to make another advocate for industry in the role of electrification, because we need to put a strong focus on industry, not only because it is a major energy consumer, but also because it offers significant opportunities for electrification and for expanding industrial activity across the clean energy value chain. So 3 priorities stand out from the perspective of UNIDO. We need to foster an integrated energy and industrial policy planning, embedding clear electrification targets in industrial policy. Second, we also need a cross-sector governance platform to coordinate power, transport, and industry. And third, to really strengthen multilateral collaboration for technology transfer and financing, ensuring that no region is left behind. I would really like to emphasize an aspect that is often overlooked. It is the opportunity for industrial development in the electrification process. This has also been strongly emphasized in the Belém Declaration on Green Industrialization, which was adopted at the last COP. And this calls for accelerating industrial hubs, industrial parks, industrial zones, and localizing clean tech value chains, an enormous opportunity for developing and emerging economies in the electrification process. I also take this opportunity to invite you to the upcoming International Vienna Energy and Climate Forum taking place at the beginning of April, because it hosts the Global Industrialization Dialogue, which will be the opportunity to take stock of where we stand and if industry delivers according to expectations. Thank you very much.
Thanks very much, Karen. It's nice to see you, and I look forward to being in Vienna after the conversations we've had. Our next session, and we're about 8 minutes behind, so I have to really have everybody stick to this minute-long intervention. To unlock rapid deployment, and how should financial and regulatory incentives be strategically structured? We covered a little bit of that in this last session, but that's the focus here. I'd like to welcome Ms. Nala Abid. She's the Vice President for the Southern Middle East for the Bureau Veritas. Thanks.
Thank you, John. So from our end, I think a lot has been already said in the previous session, as you mentioned. If I take, first of all, what was mentioned by UNIDO, I think one very important part is, are we actually looking, when we build the regulation or incentive, on the applicability in the industry in order to support the development of electrification? We'll have actually to foster the interoperability, standardize the safety protocol, and streamline operation, and to make sure that what we are giving as incentive is supporting the industry revolution. What we are seeing today is that we have incentive, various of them, but they are supporting isolated projects. We are not having a lot of incentive which are focused on grid interoperability, on grid efficiency, and on increasing as well and enabling the industry transformation. What we are also seeing that the high impact electrification would require performance-based incentive which are linked to measurable outcome, such as emission reduction, grid stability, and efficiency, and which are supported by an independent verification to build the trust and decrease risk. And finally, I do believe what is needed is a system-level approach, adaptive regulation, faster and more predictive approval process, shared standard, and what is also quite important is that we put the place in order also to have the possibility to see the failure while development. Basically, how are we today giving actually the place to experiment and to build the transparency, to learn from failure, and to coordinate how we can learn from them to develop faster.
Okay, thank you very much, Nala. It's interesting you said that government accountability, which I think is absolutely spot on. Let's go to the Green Grids Initiative. Marcus Stewart has the floor for that. Again, my colleague here from ARENA was suggesting that we need to make sure we stick to that 1 minute because we're going to be horribly behind schedule, and I'm actually chairing the next session, so we're going to have an option to carry further. So let's give the floor to Marcus. Thanks, Marcus.
Thank you. I will be brief. There's no transmission without transition. Sorry, no transition without transmission. Get it the right way around. We need grids, big and small, resilient and flexible to allow electrification. That's taken. We understand that. So how are we going to do that? Well, GGI is now coordinating part of Access One of the plans to accelerate from the COP30 presidency and high-level champions. We can bring knowledge and experience together to share that learning on how things are getting done across the globe quicker and faster. We need to do that because solving this is a collective action problem. And I'll give you an example of how it's working already. GGI and partners have been developing a set of climate finance principles to help unlock climate finance for grids. We've made fantastic progress with these. We've had the support of UNESA, IRENA, the high-level champions, COP30 presidency, and now the MDBs are getting on board. This will unlock grids. This will unlock investment in emerging and developing economies. We need to do more of this. We need to work together to make this happen. Thank you.
Great, the most direct intervention, but the message is very clear. Thank you very much, Marcus, for that. Jules Matrepied is a co-founder and executive director and managing partner of Offset 8 Capital. Please.
Well, from an investor's perspective, the incentive should be structured to do one thing, and that's making high-impact electrification projects predictable and financeable within the power system as a whole. Often, electrification projects rely on PPAs, not by choice, because the current market design does not provide enough price visibility and risk transfer mechanisms yet. So the first priority for policymakers would be market formation, not just project support. We need clear rules on dispatch, curtailment, balancing obligations, penalties, and these need to be applied consistently. Without these clarities, investors struggle to price risk, and regardless of the project climate and industrial impact, which is a shame. The second regulatory barrier is at the intersection between generation grids and industry. Electrical assets become system projects, not just standalone assets. Yet grid access, connection timelines, flexibility requirements are often treated separately from industrial powers and policy. This is where we need close collaboration between policymakers, TSOs, DSOs, and investors. We need to have a structured dialogue. Within the GCC and emerging markets, where demand growth is here and capital is also available, aligning incentives across power markets, grid planning, industrial policies is essential to unlock scale. The goal is not just to build projects, but to integrate electrification into a reliable and investable system. That's about it.
That's very clear. Thank you very much. It's good to hear the lender's view on this as well. Rahat Mohammed is the head of sponsor, all capitalized, and I didn't know if I should pronounce HEATM, but you don't say hit them, do you, or am I wrong?
Thank you.
Those are all initials for many names.
Thank you, John. Assalamu alaikum and good afternoon, distinguished ladies and gentlemen. I'll be representing sponsor, which is the AI-based project finance scalable solution for climate mitigation space. As my name suggests, I am the ATM of project finance in the climate mitigation industry. So I'll speak on the perspective of the project finance, which is the critical bottleneck of these projects that needs to be solved in order to decarbonize and hit the target by 2030 and 2050. We need to make a framework of bankabilities in each of these projects instead of doing project by project, which takes a lot of time in building those project pipeline. So we could just build a bankable framework and replicate them to the similar projects in the infrastructure. And then we can also incentivize those projects that could make highest contribution and impact to this decarbonization program. We need to build funds and deploy funds and incentivize, mobilize capitals to those project preparation stages so that each project can lead to a bankable structure where then it makes a more standardized due diligence process and helps lead to the financial close pathway from the private sector investment. So in the interest of time, John, I'll stop here and back to you from the sponsor. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Rahat. I appreciate your focus there. Mr. Nalim Agarwal is a founding partner for Climate Collective. You're here in the front row. Thanks.
Thanks, John. Distinguished guests, thank you for having us here. So Climate Collective supports climate tech startups across the global south. Across emerging markets, the main barrier to electrification is no longer only technology or capital. It's how incentives and regulations are structured for execution and innovation, especially for grids and storage. Most markets today still reward asset build-out, but we really believe incentives must explicitly value outcomes like grid flexibility, renewable integration, efficiency and resilience, and de-risk early deployment of digital and AI solutions through engagement with UNESA, GRAIL, and 21 utilities in South Asia. Via our open innovation program, Electron Vibe, we have seen how AI can unlock real system gains across forecasting, grid optimization, and storage and dispatch. And this has led to 15 pilots with about $4.5 million in savings already. But the scaling remains hard without regulatory sandboxes and faster approval pathways. Finally, electrification will only move as fast as institutional capacity. So we really believe we must see more focus on workforce upskilling and digital readiness alongside infrastructure. If we can align all this, we unlock low system costs and accelerate electrification globally. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Nalim. Cornelia, you're second row there. I thought it was you from the OECD, the Clean Energy, Finance, and Investment Policy Analyst for the group. Thanks.
Good afternoon, everyone. Electrification is key for improving energy efficiency and industry decarbonization, including through high-efficiency motor systems and industrial heat pumps. OECD is working with partner countries on identifying financing solutions and improving enabling frameworks for the stronger deployment of such solutions. And I strongly agree with previous speakers that highest impact can be achieved through comprehensive policy approaches that encourage investment. That would include regulations, including minimum energy performance standards for high-impact technologies, but also more streamlined permitting processes at the intersection of electrification, renewables, and grids, revised network tariffs that encourage electrified industrial demand, integrated long-term planning approaches and information measures to enhance the capacity and data bases in the market, as well as financial and non-financial incentives that can range from tax rebates for high-impact technologies to priority grid access for industry companies that actually implement net zero technologies. And such electrification strategies should be closely aligned with strategies to scale up renewable power and modern investment in modern power grids, and also aligned with targeted financing instruments and de-risking mechanisms where they are needed, as well as initiatives to enhance capacities and strengthen stakeholder collaboration. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Cornelia. It's good to hear the OECD voice on that. James Metto is Assistant Manager for Climate Change and Sustainability for KenGen. We had Dite and others talk about the energy access equation. I know Kenya in particular has been pushing this pretty aggressively. You want to get it from a power generation standpoint, please?
Thank you, John. Again, in the interest of time, my colleagues have already mentioned some of the barriers and incentives. I want to focus on the regulatory barriers. One of the ways to enhance deployment of renewable energy is to develop regulations that enhances utilization of renewable energy. And I want to speak to a few of them. One is the electricity markets, bulk supply, and open access. And energy auctions, as well as the feed-in tariffs, should be very clear so it can enhance utilization of renewable energy. With respect to finance, partnership and collaborations is key. And in this, there is need for development of public-private partnership to be able to utilize available finance from the private sector as well as the public entities to develop renewable energy projects. With respect to, again, grid integration, there is need for investment in grid modernization and infrastructure upgrades to address the challenges of variable renewable energy integrations. And finally, some of the renewable energy sits in community lands, and there is a need to acquire the social license to develop these programs. So there's need for openness, transparency, to be able to engage those communities in order to ensure that access to those renewable energy sources is easier and it avoids the challenges of delays in deployment of renewable energy. Thank you.
Good. Thanks. Can you leave your microphone on for just a second? It was brought up earlier about the borrowing costs and the role of blended financing to make projects happen in Africa. You know, you're speaking to international organizations and governments here. Has it improved at all to get the guarantees that you're looking for so it doesn't hold back investments into power systems for Kenya?
Yes, there is improvement to that in terms of the utilization of those guarantees and to be able to utilize the available opportunities. And this could include also the green bonds, for example, that could be options for development of these projects. Thank you.
Good. Thanks for taking the question. And I appreciate everybody's directness in that round as well. And we're moving right along to system needs and flexibility. And it's a continuation of the, to extend our progress in the last round. And given the variable nature of renewable power, how do we operationally define and plan for the system needs and flexibility required? So that is storage, which is coming to the fore now and has been addressed in the earlier part of our discussion, demand response, grid interconnections, and in which areas technology solutions are required to create a resilient system to electrify industries. And not being cute, I think we need to add cybersecurity to this conversation because the more we electrify, the bigger the threat, I think. And that's going to be, I think, a bigger challenge as we've seen over the last year, particularly the last 4 months of 2025. Can I bring Mr. Glenn Barber, the Director of Corporate Affairs for SSE, and also very involved in UNES as a co-chair, please. Thanks.
Thank you, John. Good afternoon, distinguished colleagues. Let me see if I can come in under a minute. The point I'd like to make is that for all the focus on the need to build out transmission and big strategic central plans, you know, congratulations to Marcus and colleagues on that effort. It's, of course, hugely important. I fully endorse our work, but it's vital we don't forget about distribution networks and all of this and planning at the much more local level. For our part, we operate part of the UK distribution network. We're working very closely with local authorities on this and have developed our own planning tool, which we equip them with so that they can anticipate and map out their energy needs over the long term. And that's important because we can then optimize our own network investment and also target local demand-side flex where it can be aggregated by colleagues like Octopus Energy, who we work with as well. And this is going to be vital if we can enable rather than hinder electrification of global economies and to ensure we keep costs down by only building what we need to, as I think a colleague from Austria was rightly pointing out earlier. Probably just under a minute.
Perfect, thanks. I think we're going to move into the arena space of giving awards for the most direct contributions, but you'd have a hard time judging here. But thank you very much for that, Glenn. Ibrahim Al-Mansour is Director of Engineering from Masdar, and which better having the head of engineering for system needs and flexibility. Nice to see you again. Thanks.
Assalamu alaikum and good afternoon. Thank you, John. I think we have to agree when we talk about resilience that resilience starts by planning the power system around hour by hour.
Ibrahim, have that mic or lean into it a little bit more.
Is it
Just
okay
be
now?
more. It's very directional. Thank you.
So resilience starts by planning the power system around hour by hour reliability, not just an annual energy volumes, recognizing that electrified industry needs firm, predictable supply. That immediately reaffirms flexibility as a core requirement, meaning storage, demand response, and interconnection must be designed in from the start, not layered on later. In that context, battery storage becomes central, allowing renewable power to be time-shifted, variability to be smooth, and fast response service to stabilize the grid. Alongside storage, demand-side flexibility plays an important role, practically for industrial users that can adjust consumptions in response to real-time system conditions. At the network level, the modern grids and strong interconnection allow flexibility to be shared across regions, reducing congestions and improving overall system resilience. To make this work we need advanced digital control, real-time optimization, and smart system management so clean power can be dispatched when and where it is needed. Hybrid systems that combine renewable with storage are already demonstrating how clean energy can deliver firm base load equivalent performance. When those elements are planned and operated together, grids, storage, demand flexibility, and digital system can build a resilient platform capable of electrifying industry at scale. That integrated approach is exactly what Masdar is demonstrating through our world-first gigascale round-the-clock RTC project, the world's largest battery storage system for a power utility to provide a base load of 1 gigawatt. The RTC combines 5.2 giga PV along with 19 gigawatt hour battery storage to deliver 1 gigawatt of clean, dispatchable 24 hours a day, directly addressing the intermittency challenge that conventional grid models struggle with.
Thanks very much, Ibrahim. Turkey Al-Sharifi is the Regional Vice President of the GCC for ENGIE. The pleasure to chair the roundtable with your CEO on Tuesday. So hold up the flag for ENGIE here at IRENA. Thanks.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Your Excellencies, gentlemen, ladies and gentlemen. What I would like to bring to the table is the correlation between intermittency and resilience, and how they actually it resulted in having a resilient system. So usually when we speak about intermittency, it's seen as a defect and a problem. But as a result of the intermittency, we're seeing a lot more storage taking place, costs reducing. Today, we're looking at 50% less for battery storage than it was 5 years ago. The projections are 50% less more 5 years from now. We're seeing advanced instruments to compensate for the reactive power from rotating machines. And we're seeing more focus on demand-side management and demand-side generation. So this is really where the resilience comes in. If you look at the system 20 plus years ago, it was mainly focused on rotating machines. Today, you have far more diversity in different types of technologies, as well as different fuel sources, not just relying on molecules, but actually natural resources, chemicals, and other forms of fuels, which in turn creates your resilient system. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Turkey. Zoisa Northbond, CEO of Octopus Energy Generations, for another power generator, please, with a solid reputation in Europe. Thank you.
As a power generator, I suppose it's really important that we build systems where we can get as many clean electrons onto them as possible. And to do that alongside grids and enhancing them battery storage, one of the parts I'd really like to advocate for is actually the consumer. Because without consumers and without making the most of the grids that we already have, we don't get the societal acceptance to be able to build. So it's super important we do that. We can also use consumers for household flexibility. And I think this is something that isn't commonly recognized and we would like to see more of. Using AI and digital platforms like we have at Octopus, we've actually been able to connect with over 500,000 devices across Europe. So things like battery storage in homes, heat pumps, and EVs. And we've created 2 gigawatts of flexibility. And that is under 2 years. It's created hundreds of millions of pounds in savings for customers, so keeping energy bills low. And it's enabled us to create something the size of a nuclear power station that can jump onto the grid at any time and help balance it. To be able to create that resilient grid where we can build more renewables and exploit more things like consumer flexibility, we would like to see it recognized, so targets against it, but also more commonly seen in capacity markets, where at the moment it's really quite niche and it needs to be better recognized. We'd also like to see better price signals as well, so that tariffs like the ones that create the virtual power plant can be created and operate better. I think if we can do that, and you can stand back and as society becomes more electrified, and we have more of these projects in homes, and we have more energy projects like renewables being created, those savings could really add to economies around the world. So it's something that we definitely shouldn't ignore alongside enhancing grids, storage, and industrial flexibility. Household flexibility is absolutely key.
Interesting, Zoisa. Just very quickly then, Where are you seeing the most progress with that consumer flexibility? Which market in Europe, so people can take a look at it?
So at the moment, it's the UK, Germany, and we are doing some in Spain actually as well.
Okay, thanks for taking that. Gerhard Salge is the Chief Technology Officer at Hitachi Energy, also a major player in this region. Please, thanks.
Thanks, John, and good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. So we heard already a number of very, very different aspects when it comes to the flexibility and the resilience. So I want to complement with one more element, which I feel is very important. We just heard on the power generation side, on the demand side, and also the integration of storage, which are the requirements, needs, and opportunities. And all these come technology-wise with inverter-based resources. And that means we need to make the grid fit to deal with those inverter-based resources, which are coming with slightly different challenges to the power system than the conventional power systems. So what I want to underline is we need to make those grid investments which are happening now in a future-fit, most modern technology, also with power electronics, with most modern control, and with the most modern digital technologies all across, so that the grids are able to cope with the new requirements and can ensure the flexibility and resilience which they need.
Good. Thank you very much for the, again, the directness. Mr. Sri Nitesh Kumar is the Managing Director of IAS for Dakshinal Vidyut Vitran Nigam Limited. I don't think I did that correctly, but I certainly give it a good chance. Please.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I am representing IDA here, All India Discom Association. In context of India, as closing of 2025, 510 gigawatt of energy we have produced, and out of this, 51.6% is non-fossil fuel. We have achieved target 5 years before. The Government of India has taken several steps and initiatives to promote and accelerate the renewable energy capacity in the country to realize the commitment of 500 gigawatt non-fossil energy capacity by 2030, including schemes under solar rooftop, PLI production linked incentives, schemes enhancing solar PV. Ministry of Power has introduced a policy to promote pump storage capacity, which enhance the renewable energy potentials. Building a resilient and flexible grid requires a strategic two-pronged approach. This strategy involves simultaneously optimizing the performance of our existing assets while aggressively deploying new flexible technology that can support a high penetration of renewables. These two pillars form the foundation of a modern, reliable, and low carbon power system. The first pillar focuses on foundational imperatives for de-risking the grid through immediate structural reforms, two actions: coal fleet flexibilization and grid upgradation. The second pillar is the aggressive deployment of grid-scale energy storage, which is essential for absorbing surplus renewable energy and dispatching it when needed. In the domain, pump storage projects have emerged as the premier long-duration storage solutions of India. Demand response is one of the important tools in future to ensure grid stability, especially during evening hours, which includes TOD tariff, P2P energy, trading, BTM, behind the meter energy storage, etc. Thank you.
Thank you, Sri. Mr. Papoussis is Assistant Manager of Networks for DSO EAC. Marius, thanks.
Good afternoon, John.
Good afternoon.
Thank you very much, Your Excellency, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you very much for the opportunity to present the system of Cyprus. Operating a small and isolated system in the middle of the Mediterranean is a challenge on an everyday basis to balance demand and supply, let alone the high penetration of renewables. Today, we have almost the same installed load of conventional units and renewables on the system. We are heavily investing on the upgrade of grids, digitalization, smart grids, until we have an interconnection in place. We are putting a distribution SCADA system, an AMI rollout, automation on the medium voltage. 2026, it's a very exciting year for Cyprus. We are putting large battery systems on the system, medium voltage utilization, 50% of smart meters, and automation. Flexibility and demand-side management is the optimal solution to avoid inactive investments. The biggest challenge is the incentives and getting on board all network users to this transformation and make electricity users more active to this transformation. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Marios. It's actually been a pretty radical 5 years in terms of development in the LNG space, in addition to pursuing the policy in the renewable space as well. So it's been a transformative market and window of time for the Eastern Med. Let's welcome Kangyao Yang. She's the Senior Director of Policy Research and Public Affairs at CATL. Nice to see you as a world leader in your space. Thank you.
So thank you, John. Ladies and gentlemen, as the top manufacturer for advanced batteries and system-level solution provider, we CATL see energy storage are used more extensively beyond power sector, actually, in many other industries to achieve joint decarbonization. And one example is AIDC. So data center plus storage has been the hottest subfield application in the recent years. And AIDC are actually highly energy consuming and requires non-disruptive power supply. And energy storage solutions with high reliability, high capacity, and long life paired up with renewables can provide a green solution there. Another example is electric vessels. And we CATL has launched last year a vessel shore cloud integrated solution consists of containerized batteries designed for ships and charging facilities on the shore, as well as cloud services and AI to optimize energy efficiency, as well as to ensure battery health. And so far, we have delivered 900 electric vessels, mostly in China, but gradually overseas. And so this year, we are about to deliver powered battery system solutions for electric container ship for our overseas client in France. And this vessel will operate in Vietnam, providing inland shipping services for a local factory there to deliver goods to the port. Another example is that we are helping Singapore to decarbonize its international harbor by delivering port service electric vessels. So as energy storage is becoming more and more cross-sectoral, we see there's a strong need to have a global platform that is industry-led and as well as inclusive, that encompassing all stakeholders along the value chain. That includes utilities, grid companies, manufacturers, and investors to sit together and actually to enhance our product standards, our safety protocols, and to promote pilot projects around the world, as well as providing recommendations for policymakers. So we CATL, we are actually proposing to have such global initiative to be established under Arena UNESA, and we welcome open discussion and active participation from all of you. Thank you.
Great, thank you very much. Philip Hart, Chief Researcher, Technology Innovation Institute. We've covered a lot of territory. You're the most patient man in the room, but we're not rushing you. Thanks.
That's fine, I get the graveyard speech. I guess the question was all about technology and what do we need. Well, I think the good news is we've got probably most of the technology that we need already, right? The question is, okay, can we make it cheaper and all that sort of stuff? But that will come. History's shown us that the price of renewables will come down. The question that is holding us up, I think, is what technology should we deploy when, and how much of it? Right? And the answer to that question can only be established if we have a full understanding of the system from end to end. And I think that is where we need to make strides in modeling the systems in digital land so that we can make the right informed plans and then implement that plan over a multi-decadal basis. The good news is that those type of models are eminently doable nowadays. Okay, give us 5 or 10 years ago, they weren't. but we can build those models and run full countrywide runs of what-if scenarios in minutes nowadays. And I think that's where we need to go so that we can make informed decisions about where we spend our money, how investable it is, and what technologies we should be putting.
Great. Thank you very much for the clarity on that. I think that conversation has changed so radically in the last 5 years, right, because of the on-take of AI, which should assist in that process. Most people look at it as a demand driver, but also an innovation driver. I'm sure you'd agree with that. Number one, I want to thank Zafar and the team from ARENA, members of the Alliance, of course, which brought this together, which is terrific. I know that's not easy to ask you to keep to, as government leaders, 2-minute interventions, and our Alliance members and our private sector members to a minute, but everybody got their voice in, which I think is very important. And I know the work that goes on year-round between this organization and all of you in the room. So a nice round of applause for the organization and for your contributions. Thanks very much. Yeah, thanks.